welcome to Auto Arcadia. I'm one of the hosts, Colin Wood, and with me is
Thomas Hope, the other host.
And tonight we're going to be looking at engines and oily bits and what makes an engine great in a good driver's car. So, any screamer or turbo monster? Perhaps neither. Maybe it's chassis twist and torque from a supercharger, some Group B madness in the form of twin charging. For certain, it's nothing without a rifle bolt slick box to tie it all together. We're about to jump into what a great driver's car needs from its engine. So,
Definitely, I'm looking forward to this. I know much less than you about engines and oily bits.
well, I have a long history with them, and some of it is regrettable.
Yeah, definitely. I would very much like to hear some of your personal opinions and anecdotes on engines.
No problem. Well, I suppose we'll get cracked in. So, construction differences and engine configurations. So, like, there's some weird ones. But the big three is inline, V, and then your flats or like horizontally opposed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Like for me, straight six is the king. Just because of the balance, it's just fantastic. And I actually think they sound the best as well.
It's definitely an appealing configuration for sure. Yeah. I do like an inline six. I like a V.
Yeah, I'm not mad keen on a V6. I would prefer all 6 cylinders are inline, but a V8, V10, V12, yeah, that's cool shit. Like that's Nirvana.
Absolutely. It would be kind of sick to own a V12 car. Or a V8, but maybe a V12 more than a V8 before, we stop doing combustion.
Yeah, we're never going to stop doing combustion, man. That's a fucking tree hugger and Tesla owner's dream right there. That can't be allowed to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would really, really miss the internal combustion engine if it disappeared from like our roads and stuff. If it became like the steam engine. Do you remember? I don't know. This might be way off, but did you ever used to go to like, I don't know what you would call them, maybe like agricultural shows or like they would have like loads of steam engines, whatever they were.
Yeah.
And they would have like a steam engine running and cutting about. Maybe this is just something to do with living in the country or something like that. But like, I would really hate for internal combustion to be relegated to the same kind of like old men in, like padded jackets and flat caps, like standing around in a field on a cold Sunday. And that's really the only time they ever like run them and like do that. I'd really hate it for it to get that niche.
No, it'll never do that, man. Never. I don't think it will. Certainly in our lifetime, it won't. It fucking better not, anyway.
Fair. No, I think I agree with you. I don't think they're going anywhere soon.
No, definitely not. I mean, yeah, for me, inline six, that's the daddy right there. I'm not mad keen on a V6. A flat six, however, oh, what a noise! And that's not me just with my like Porsche fucking.
Oh, your Porsche branded sportswear on.
Yeah, my Porsche branded sportswear, my Porsche obsession at the moment. But like, even like the Subaru Legacy with the flat six in it, man, the 3 litre R, what a noise! Yeah,
absolutely.
So there's not really a plus or minus on the number of cylinders and the configuration. I mean, a straight six and a V12 are your two absolute perfect configurations because the balancing is just fantastic. Because you've always got cylinders at the same point and everything's nicely balanced. All the moments are just perfect. Your primary and secondary moments, all your everything. It's just the perfect configuration. There's some oddities as well. So like W engines, which would
There's
be like
small Vs, like V2s and V4s.
Yeah, so you've got your small Vs, you've got your Ws, which is like Veyron's. What's the footballer's car that Bentley makes? The Continental.
Yeah.
Those sort of things. They're a bit odd. It's essentially, the VR6, which is a straight six, but it's actually a V6, but on a single head. So it's like a really narrow cylinder offset, like 15 degrees or something.
Yeah.
Essentially 2 of those together to make like a W12. So 2 of those running off a common crank.
Yeah.
Don't really know what was wrong with a V12. I mean, it's a bit longer, but just
Yeah, I don't know either, but whatever they engineered it, they made it happen.
yeah.
Do you know? There's another type of engine that I don't even know if you've seen this, but have you heard of the H configuration?
I have.
Yes. Okay. Have you heard? There was the Formula One car in the the 60s that had a H16. There was
Right.
two flat eights just lying on top of each other, sharing a kind of common, just sharing two cranks, but then they were linked.
That's fantastic.
It's kind of insane, that, isn't it?
This is where you get really cool stuff. Because you've got the radial engine as well. Now, off the top of my head, I can't actually think of a radial engine being put in a car, but I know for a fact that someone somewhere has, or some company
I've definitely
somewhere.
seen video of radial powered vehicles. 100%. It's been done.
Yeah,
Definitely been done. Turbines were done as well,
they were.
which is wild.
It is. It's nuts. But then we
They
come
really
on
wanted to
to.
make a nuclear reactor car as well.
Oh, actually, I've got a little anecdote on this. So in the 60s when they were going nuclear powered everything,
Yeah, absolutely.
they tried to make a nuclear powered aeroplane until they
Yes.
realised that they had to make it air cooled, and the fact that you have an air cooled reactor flying through the sky means that all the air coming out the other side of the reactor is radioactive. So it went round spewing radioactivity all over the shop. So they had to cancel the project.
I'm glad they cancelled the project. It would be much worse if they'd realised that and it continued on regardless.
Well, I mean, it's scarier though that nuclear engineers didn't realise this at the concept stage, and they got to the point where it was like, "I will start mocking up for a design," and then they were like, "Shit, this is going to kill everyone."
Yeah, it does seem like a little bit of a big mess.
It does. Well, yeah, actually, that's quite a nice wee segue because we went from radial to aircraft, and the next engine on the oddity list. I'm not going to go forever with the configurations because it's not a massive thing for me anyway. Is rotaries.
Oh, of course, yeah. We've got rotaries.
Now, I fucking love a rotary engine. Yeah, they're just amazing. I know there's issues with apex seals wearing down and low compression and oil consumption and low fuel consumption and everything else. But if you get a peripheral ported 13B in any car whatsoever and you hear it going at full chat, you'll be converted. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah, they are kind of great. Then they're great in some ways because they're kind of shit.
Yeah.
Like they're still good despite all of their numerous drawbacks because they sound great.
And the thing is, as well, I loved my RX-8 with the 13B Mazda Sideport MSP, engine. And they got a bum rap with the RX-8, and it was because it was so accessible at a price point, and people just didn't understand them. And the salesman and Mazda didn't really make any effort to make people understand what they were buying. So it's like they were driven by everyone back in the day. They were everywhere. They were ubiquitous, man. It was a bit like the 350Z, but not quite as common.
You can still get an RX-8 no bother. Like there's loads of them around.
Yeah, but their values are tanked because of people not understanding them.
Absolutely. Like, compared to the RX-7, RX-8s are like pennies.
Oh, yeah, 10 a penny.
Absolutely. I always found that slightly weird. Like, I will confess, when the RX-8 came out, like, I didn't really like the design, and I didn't really like, the rear kind of half suicide doors and stuff. Because I remember seeing an RX-8 at, like, I think it's like an NEC motor show or something like that. Like, seeing the concept or, like, the first production when they were, like, showing it around at all these shows. And, like, I remember not being that interested in it, but over time, and having sat in yours and seen yours, I must say they've really, really grown on me, and I actually think the styling has, especially the later versions with the...
They are free.
Yeah, definitely. They've aged so nicely. They look fantastic.
Yeah, I would definitely be looking to pick one up in a year or two, because I think they're going to go mental as a classic. Like, I think there was... It's got to be like a bit like Mark II Escort, I think. You know how everybody had them and people were literally like fucking burning them to get rid of them. Like
Yeah.
nobody wanted them for a while, and then they got kind of popular for a wee bit, and then it just exploded, and everybody wanted one.
Absolutely, and like people always complain about, oh, you know, you need to factor in the cost of the engine rebuild, but like, you know, people don't like the fact that a car was unreliable when it came out very rarely affects its value in future if it becomes, you know, like more valuable. Like think of all these Lancias that people are like, you know, spending big money on. It's not like they're not fucking total liabilities as well.
I was just about to say that as the very example. As soon as you mentioned reliability, I was like, try buying a cheap Lancia. It doesn't fucking exist.
Any old classic car is not going to be very reliable. Like that's the thing. That doesn't matter when it comes to like if you can get a decent quality one now when they're dirt cheap and keep it nice, I reckon you'd make good money on that.
Oh yeah, easily. No, they're and you know the thing is as well. Like everyone thinks that the rotary is like this evil thing that is so complicated it's unbelievable, but they literally have like 27 moving parts. Like that's actually taking it to the extreme of counting them as well. Whereas like your standard four cylinder Econobox engine has like 127 moving parts. It's
Yeah.
literally like they are so simple. Like all and they get a bum rap as well because like this is my big gripe is see if they had the same amount of money spent on R&D as conventional reciprocating engines have, they would be powerhouses.
Yeah, no one has really spent that much time trying to improve the
No, 'cause you had NSU essentially,
eye.
who made everything from cars to motorbikes with them, which
Yep.
was great. It was rotary madness. Then Mercedes had a brief fling with the rotary engine, and ever since then it's just been Mazda.
What did they use the rotary in?
I believe it was an LMP car.
Ah, I see. And did
Yeah.
NSU not become Mazda?
Fuck, I can't remember. I don't
I'm
possibly.
unsure on that as
You're
well. Like,
you're testing my brand knowledge now.
sorry, man. I always have like these kind of memories of like half remembered things from like you know like YouTube stuff or documentaries or just any kind of like car kind of history content. It's like the fact is being waved near my mind, but not quite close enough for me to know it.
Yeah, and I'm even a bit behind that because I don't even have a recollection of hearing that NSU became Mazda, but I'm definitely not going to go out on a limb and say that they didn't.
It could also just be something I've totally made up.
Well, I'm not going to challenge it because I haven't a fucking clue. But on the subject of, well, I mean, on the opposite subject of rotaries, the kind of general configuration, the only bit that's left.
Sorry, man, can I just really quickly interrupt?
No, go for it.
NSU did not become Mazda. NSU was a German manufacturer, and they were acquired by our good friends at Volkswagen Group.
Oh, fuck, of course they were. You know, the difference between. Actually, no. You know, I'm not letting the Volkswagen Audi Group hatred infiltrate another episode.
I could literally like hear it start. Okay, yeah. Sorry, what you were saying.
No, it's okay. So, like, on the construction differences, the next kind of stop point here is like cams and cam configuration. Obviously, not for a rotary engine because they don't have cams at all. They work more like a two-stroke. They've got holes that fuel comes in through. And the impact on size is a big one here. So, like, most modern engines are overhead cam at a bare minimum.
Mm-hmm.
Dual overhead cam is the most common. Side
Mm-hmm.
valve gets an honorary mention because there's none of them in existence as far as I'm concerned, outside of possibly like some really niche dump truck diesel engines or something like that.
Oh, okay. Whoa. We're gonna have to go a little bit slower for me, right?
Yeah.
So I am obviously familiar with dual overhead cam, like,
Yes.
and that's you know it's been kicking around for a while, but it was definitely used to brand cars. You know it's dual overhead cam. It's good. It's new. And I'm also aware of the single overhead cam as well. So that's where it's one cam controlling the intake and exhaust valves.
Yes.
Whereas dual overhead cam, it's one cam controlling the intake and one cam controlling the exhaust.
Yep.
But like, what about overhead? What's the other one? Because there's the other one.
So you've got. I was just about to get onto that one. So you've got side valve, right?
Yeah.
Which is like it's like flathead V8s, panhead Harleys. It's a bit of an oddity. They don't really exist anymore. They're just here for an honourable mention.
But how did it work? Like, what does it mean by a flathead V8?
Essentially, the heads are flat. Like so there wasn't really anything there.
So that's
the
not where the
valves
intake and exhaust were.
No, they were all there, but the heads were basically a flat panel that contained spark plugs. Essentially, that's what you had. And then the
Right.
valves were on the side of that.
Okay, yeah.
A bit of a relic, not really relevant at all. I mean,
Fair.
they will have a pretty big following, but yeah, I mean, it's not something I have a massive amount of experience with, to be fair. They're just, they're an honourable mention, and I don't actually know all that much about them, to be fair.
Well, you knew more than me, and that was quite interesting to know. Yeah, okay, cool.
Fair enough. And then you have what is really a relic for the vast majority of manufacturers and engines, which is overhead valve. So that's where you've basically got a camshaft in the block.
Yeah.
And it's got a set of cam buckets or followers, whatever your terminology wants. They then act on a push rod that then goes up to a rocker shaft, and then the rocker shaft transmits the reciprocal movement from the push rod into the top of the valve.
Yeah, these are really, really kind of funny to watch because they remind me of a musical instrument in a lot of ways.
Yes. Now, one advantage you have, like your overhead valves, they tend to be much smaller. So you can make a much more condensed package. And like one way of describing that would be if you look at an LS1 V8 side by side with like a modern 4-cylinder engine, it's almost embarrassing how you can fit 8 cylinders and nearly 3 times the displacement into the same footprint as a 2-litre 4-cylinder.
Is that with all of the junk attached? You know, all of the ancillaries?
Yeah. Like if the ancillaries are attached like for like, typically you can fit an LS1 V8 in place of like a 2J, for example. You'll save an absolute ton in weight. You'll have a shorter package, which means you've got less overhang over the front axle, and generally it'll be smaller, lighter, and dare I say, easier to work on.
Okay, interesting.
But they do tend to have died out for the most part. It's only really a big American V8s and some oddity engines nowadays that have them. So you're talking like BMC A series, like what the Minis came with and that sort of thing.
They are really, really basic. That's one of their things. They're quite like simple. It's a really simple idea.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like for the BMC, I mean, there is performance benefits to going dual overhead cam, to be fair. Although everyone with an LS1 V8 will say you don't need it. But like you get conversion kits for like BMC A series engines for a reason, to make them into dual overhead cam engines.
Mm-hmm.
And the need is there to improve performance. Although, to be honest with that engine, a lot of it's to do with the way that the ports are set up. But we'll not get into that there.
Okay.
That's very British car enthusiast, flat cap, anorak, speaking with a lot of adenoids and those fuckers. Right. So we're kind of getting into the more interesting stuff now, which is like your rotational mass and the kind of impacts that has on revving. Now, the big one here is like, this is like a fundamental engine design sort of thing, and you've got over square versus under square. So,
and that's to do with the width of the piston and also the travel, vertical travel.
So over square is your bore is wider than what your stroke is long.
Yep.
And under square is that it's narrower than what the stroke is long. Now, the be all and end, this is very simplistic, by the way. We're not holding a fucking seminar in engine design. This is nice and easy, nice and simple. So over square, typically, you're going to have a higher power band. You're going to have typically lower piston speeds because you're traveling less distance. And they're going to have that really nice rev-happy nature. You know that when you get in an engine that actually begs to be revved,
Yeah.
typically higher red lines as well. Pretty much all your Formula One engines are an over square design.
Which is wider bore than stroke.
Yeah, I mean, you could like go to extremes. You could have a bore. You could have a 10-litre engine with a 25mm stroke if you took it to the massive extreme and had like a fucking 250mm diameter cylinder. Like, but there is a sweet spot where you get the laws of diminishing returns, as with everything, due to the laws of physics. And under square engines typically tend to be the opposite. So you're going to have much higher piston speeds, typically a lower power band, a lower rev limit as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
that's really interesting.
Yeah,
yeah, definitely. That's really interesting to know.
Now there's more here as well. So then you have like differences in differences in crankshafts. So you get like crossplane is a big one. So you know how you have the difference in sound between an American V8 and a Ferrari V8, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of that is due to the crossplane cranks. They're very common in European V8s, not so much in American ones. And
okay,
it's fine.
but what are they?
So essentially, they even out the distance between your power strokes when you look at it rotationally.
Right.
It's to do with how you're the timing of how you're delivering where your power strokes are. So the configuration of your crankshaft plays into the configuration of your cams and it's not the configuration of your cams, but the setup of your cams. So it'll dictate what cylinder is going to be on what stroke at what time and what other cylinders are going to be on what other stroke at what time.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So for me, I prefer the sound of a air quotes European V8, that really high pitched whine noise.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the boy, you know.
It does sound great. Yeah.
It's amazing. The same bit here, you've got a lot of clever coatings going on. So like BMW had this in the 90s with the E36 and the 328i's with Nicosil, and basically the death of leaded fuels kind of killed it off, and everybody got bore pitting in the bores, and it was just a massive thing, and that's why nobody wanted a 328i for the longest of time. Which it's mental because the actual failure rate on the engines was a lot lower than what it actually would have been, but it got blown out of proportion.
These things sometimes take on a life of their own, don't they?
Yeah, it's a lot like everything. I mean, the RX-8 fucking fell foul of it, didn't it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of more. 2-litre TDI engines when they came out. I don't know if this one was like public though. This was certainly in the motor trade. Like the amount of those that were munching. So the timing setup on them was a timing chain from the crank to the oil pump, and there was a fault on some of the early ones where the chain, I can't remember what the mode of failure was, but basically the chain fell off, and you could be doing like 4,000 RPM accelerating out of a junction, and it would just go, there's no oil pump, and none of the bearings have oil, and you're going really fast.
Yeah.
And then you get knock, 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 engine death. Rodney's here to play, putting a window in your block.
Oh no.
Yeah, so
that's the worst kind of engine failure as well, the catastrophic one.
Yeah, because I mean, there's not really any coming back from that, you know.
No.
I've tried it with MR2s in the past. So MR2s had this thing where they're a non-interference engine, where if the timing belt snaps, the pistons and the valves don't collide. There's enough clearance that they can all freewheel and just nothing happens.
Oh, I get you, yeah.
And I'd bought 2 or 3 of them that have had the belt snap. And within 6 months, usually, what I find is that you end up having to do the bottom end on them. And it's because the oil pump's driven off cam belt as well. So when it snaps, you lose your lubrication, and then you end up running dry. And it doesn't matter that it's not running under power. What matters is you're still doing fucking 7,000 RPM, and you've got all that inertia to like bleed off through rotations before it'll stop.
Mm.
So it's like, even though you're trying to stop it, it doesn't matter. It's going to continue running on, and there's nothing you can really do about it. The oil's out. The oil's going to get squished out of the shells very quickly, just because of the nature of the movements in an engine, and then you're going to have rod knock.
It's doing damage, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's all it is. I mean, the important thing to mention when you're talking about this as well is you're generally, the only reason an engine works is because you're maintaining a film of oil between all of the moving parts.
Absolutely, yeah. And the crank and block can have all kinds of little oil feeds and oil returns.
Yeah. I mean, there's loads of stuff you can do as well. Like there's a big thing with teardropping journal oil feeds, which instead of just having a hole, is that they're diagrammed into a teardrop shape.
Yeah.
And the idea was that it increases the oil, it increases the oiling efficiency. But I mean, to me, I've never seen anything to actually prove that. But in the same vein, I've not had anyone come to me with an engine that's been teardropped, and they're like, "Oh, my fucking bottom ends fell out." Oh,
Yeah.
That's a horrible sentence to have to say as a human or a car owner. But yeah, so I mean, I've never seen any real evidence of like it does anything to the detriment, but I'm not convinced it's absolutely necessary when you're building an engine either.
Fair.
You get a lot of cool stuff though with like lubrication system where you get oil squirters. They squirt oil up underneath the pistons. So like the 2J turbos had this, and it's to cool the pistons. So
all right.
And generally, what you find is the engines that have that versus the engines that don't. So like the 2JZ GTE versus the GE, when you turbo both of them, there's been a lot of anecdotal evidence that they're not needed, but then I see a lot of higher power GTE engines than I do GE engines. So it is what it is. And then you get people that argue that it's like, oh no, you don't want them because they create windage at high RPM. It's like, but you've got a crankshaft splashing into an oil bath. It's going to create fucking windage anyway at high RPM. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, what I'm trying to say is like when you get into that kind of side of it, it depends who you talk to. Everyone's going to have an opinion, and everyone's going to have the right opinion as well.
Yeah, I totally get it. There is no real data to prove what one way or the other, so it's all anecdotal, and everyone's a bit committed to their own side.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, the second somebody from Cosworth turns around and goes, "That's incorrect. You're a fucking idiot. Shut your fucking mouth." At that point, I'll be like, okay, that man knows what he's talking about. They built some of the best engines ever fucking made. But yeah, I suppose back to what we were on there. So like rotational mass and the appetite for revs, widespread growth of dual mass flywheels is something that I absolutely fucking lament as well.
Yeah, what is the dual mass flywheel?
So you have a single mass flywheel, which is literally just a flywheel. Now, the reason for it is to create inertia. So if you have a flywheel that's too light, your engine will stall at a low RPM. So it's to make your engine work better at idle, essentially. It won't actually idle without it because of the gaps in between your power pulses when you're firing.
Does it help kind of like keep the engine fairly smooth?
Yes,
gear changes as well.
That's another function of it. And the dual mass was intended to increase the smoothness and the refinement. So essentially what you have inside a dual mass is a load of springs with weights on them.
Oh no, I'm worried already.
Yeah, it's a fucking horrible thing. And they're horrifically expensive. So like whenever you do a clutch on a modern diesel, 9 out of 10 times, most garages will be like, it's got to be over £1,000, pal. Because if we go in there, we're putting a dual mass flywheel in it. Because as soon as you drive out of here, it's gonna fuck up. And they've got all the labour to do again to change the same fucking thing. 9 out of 10 times, I've never ever done a clutch on a car with a dual mass flywheel and taken the dual mass flywheel out and found it to be serviceable. They've always been fucked.
Fair. I mean, what is the purpose of them really, though? Like, why do they have to be dual mass? I assume that they can separate, so you can have a lighter one and a heavier one.
No, it's all the same unit, but it's on springs because the weights can go out as it revs. So
Okay.
Because if you move the weight further to the outside of your rotational distance,
absolutely, yeah,
the heavier it is. So like it's that essentially. What I done a lot of the time was weld the fucking things up so they couldn't move and then throw them back in, and not one single fucking person has ever complained about it. Nobody has came back to me and said, since you welded that up, because I'm too cheap to buy a dual mass flywheel. I'm like, yeah, I can't sit in my car. It's too rough. It's too coarse. There's too many vibrations. I've never had it. I think genuinely, if OEMs were all to switch to using single mass flywheels, nobody on the planet would actually ever realise there was a difference. And then you've got balancer shafts, which are much the same thing. They're there to remove.
Make sure the engine stays in balance.
Yeah, they remove unwanted harmonics essentially.
Fair, yeah.
So they're really common on oddly sized inline fours and not flats. V6s are really common because they're so inherently horribly balanced that they need them to actually work.
Like inline threes?
No, inline threes shouldn't be too bad. No, actually, they should. It's half a straight six. I don't know. I'd have to have a look. Inline threes weren't massively common when I done my qualifications anyway. I mean, I didn't really do much with them until I was actually out of the motor trade, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. That is fair. They have become a lot more popular recently.
They have, and I actually like them, man. They've got a nice noise.
They do have quite a fun noise. Yeah, I don't hate a 3-pot.
I mean, the little Yaris that could done well with its little 3-pots engine, like it, I could not kill it.
I love how of all the cars that Yaris is kind of like special.
I loved my Yaris, man.
Yeah, I know.
Like, it was an absolute bucket, right? But I mean, I bought it for 400 quid, and it had like 180,000 miles on it, and I gave it fucking death, man. Like, I would rev it till the valves came out and danced on the bonnet, and then I would rev it some more, and then I would change gear. And it just took it. It would not die. I'd actually have another one in a heartbeat, but I would have the 1.8.
What was your one? The 1.2?
No, the one it was like a 0.9.
Oh yeah, of course it was a 3-pot. Yeah, wow, yeah. No wonder you drove that on the red line everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, mate, honestly, I had a decent turn of speed, to be fair, for a little 900cc 3-pot. I loved it. I thought it was class. But I mean, I also loved my Supra, so
Yeah, totally.
But there's one that I would rather have.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I honestly, I'm not sure on the 3 cylinders. I would imagine, part of me wants to say they should be fine, because as you have a cylinder going down, you've got a cylinder coming up, and you'll have a cylinder in the middle.
I know, but will it not be kind of tip over on the axis, along the, when one's going down and then immediately on the other side it's going up? That's causing quite a lot of rotational force there.
Yeah, you may well find that they're quite common with balance shafts, but honestly, I don't know off the top of my head.
Fair enough. I did not mean to bog us down on actually solving this issue right here and right now.
No, hey man, it's a good question, and it's something I will have to look into, because a very good saying for you, in fact, no, I won't say that. It's a bit too mental for the podcast. I think I'll park that one. I'll tell you that one later. So yeah, I mean, we've kind of covered construction and coatings and rotational mass. So the kind of next bit's displacement, and this is where it gets a bit more discussion-y, hopefully. So like me and you kind of come from an era where the two, especially in the UK, 2 litres were ubiquitous.
Aye, definitely.
And for the longest of time, pretty much any fast car that was really accessible for me was a 2-litre 4-cylinder.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And if you were lucky, you might get a turbo.
yeah, like the really fast ones, like your Imprezas and your Evos, Celica GT4s, they were the turboed ones, and then like it seemed like every hot model was a 2-litre 4-cylinder.
Yeah,
Obviously,
absolutely.
there's like the RS4s and stuff that were 2.7 V6s and all that crap, but like that was the engine size.
Most common cars, you could always get a 2-litre inline four with them. You
Yeah,
know, like Fords, Vauxhalls, just like kind of like run of the mill car. They were all offering that, and that was usually the best engine. Apart from, yeah, as you were saying, some of the kind of more special ones where they would wedge a V6 in there or something.
yeah. And I just wanted to know, like, what did you think of it? The 2-litre being everywhere, like that was the hot model in quotes engine size.
Okay, so I actually can kind of remember this because I remember looking for a. I started with the 1.25 Fiesta,
Yeah,
and I remember looking for another car, and going around like various kind of showrooms and looking at stuff. And the dream, as it were, was always get something that's 2-litre. Like I want something that's like reasonably quick. I want a 2-litre. And I was like really young at the time. Like my insurance was absolutely mental on cars.
yes,
So like I was looking at stuff that was like 1.6 Mazda 3 in like I was like I remember going and looking at like a 1.6 Mazda 3 like Tanara or something, whatever they call that spec. And right beside it at the dealership was the 2-litre Mazda 3 kind of sport or something. And it just was way more appealing. Like I really was like, why I can't buy the 1.6 knowing that exists and that's also available. Like that's I just wasn't up for it. I was just like, I can't. I really want I want a bigger engine. I tried a 1.6 or maybe a 1.8 Focus, and I was like, didn't really like the Focus, to be honest. It felt like driving a bus.
yeah,
Actually, to be honest, I felt the Mazda 3 kind of had quite a high, weirdly straight seeing position as well. But then I ended up seeing a Volvo, a 2-litre diesel Volvo S40. And for some reason, I bought that. I think I liked the fact it was 2-litre, even though it was fucking diesel. Like, it was really torquey, but, like, ultimately quite a crap drive.
yeah,
But yeah, no, I totally remember. I remember actively thinking 2-litre. Oh, I want some of that. But as time has gone on, I have realised that actually a 2-litre inline four is kind of one of the most boring engine configurations out there. Like, there's more interesting, weird stuff.
yeah. And I mean, I get why, because it's like it's easy to package. But do you know the thing that I miss the most about it? The 2-litre being the hot model era was like I had the Ford Escort when I was learning to drive, right?
Aye.
Like I got a 1.3 and then I sold it and I bought a 1.8, right?
Whoa, the power.
Yeah, but this is the thing because it was that era and it was just what the technology was like on a shoestring. Essentially for 100 quid, I could get an extra fucking 25 brake horsepower.
Totally.
Which was I go down to the scrapyard, I find a 2-litre Mondeo, I pull the engine out of it, and I slap it into the Escort. And it's like I've went from 115 brake to 150 for 100 quid. Now, hey, you're not going to set the world on fire with 150 brake, but when you're in a car that weighs 1,300 kilos and you can get it down to about a ton pretty easily, 150 brakes not bad when you're 17.
Oh no, that's plenty. Absolutely, that's plenty. Like I think you hit on a really good point where you say the cars they were lighter. So back when 2 liters naturally aspirated was quite a hot model, the cars themselves were not as heavy, so it felt more. It felt like more.
Yeah, like back then, like the 2-litre Focus that was so common was actually quite nippy in the Mark One, not the Mark Two. The Mark Two was fed nothing but KFC and Burger King, but the Mark One was actually a decent steer, and the 2 litre was reasonably nippy, like, and it didn't have to be like the ST or anything. Like, thank fuck, because we don't like the STs. But yeah, no, just with the weight of the cars at the time, it was really good.
I think now I would probably see 2 litre turbocharged as kind of like on the more basic end of what I would look for in a car.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's still good. Like, I'm not gonna knock it. There's some amazing cars out there with that engine kind of style. But I've experienced it in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thoughts there. Now, the next two, the downsizing trend. Now, I don't have anything against this, because it means more turbos. And more turbos in 5 now means more turbos in scrapyard in 10 years' time, which means cheap turbo conversions for everyone, right?
Namely you.
Mainly me. So what do you think on that? And more importantly, like, against the trend of what's happening in the industry, do you think it would ever apply to you? Because, I mean, you've got the 3 litre turbo straight six now.
Yeah.
Would you ever go down? Would you ever be like, I'll go down in displacement again? Or what's your thoughts, like, on personally and the trend at large?
So personally, I would maybe go down, but it would have to be the right car. But generally, the way I've bought cars is looked at the current horsepower figure of my car and then compared all of the ones I could afford and then picked one of the highest numbers. So that's just generally increased displacement over time. So, like, I'd quite like the next car I'd probably buy would probably look for it to be a little bit more powerful than the one I've got. And if it had like a V8 or something like that, that would be a bit of a bonus.
Fair enough, yeah.
So that's like I actually quite like big displacement cars. Like, I've talked before about how I just get terrible fuel economy out of no matter what I drive, so I don't even bother trying. So, like, I wouldn't mind a V8. I wouldn't mind that it was thirsty. I'd be like, right, well, I did buy it, and, like, I don't do an insane amount of driving. And when I do, I usually get crap MPG.
Fair play.
But the industry at large, I understand why it's happening. Like, I totally get why 3-cylinder turbo, kind of like very small, very like, quite powerful for their size and package and stuff like that, but also very fuel efficient because of their size and package being like under 1 litre and all of the benefits you can get, them being like in the right tax bracket and stuff like that. But they're just not something that I would really ever look at, if you know what I mean. It's like, it's almost out of what I look at in the car industry. Just, they're all things that, I don't know, maybe I'd have to drive one day as like a hire car or something, but I would never have to live with.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, due to Copart adventuring going on at the minute, I'm driving an awful lot of 1 litre 3-cylinder and 4-cylinder turbos, and there's nothing inherently wrong with them, but they just leave me wanting more.
Yeah. I mean, I've driven a couple where, like, that initial, when you put your foot down, the car really does feel like it picks up. But then you get over a certain speed and there's just nothing there.
Just noise.
Yeah, just noise. Like, it's like the engine fought wind resistance and then it hit its limit and that's it. That's all it's got. This is no VMAX.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's also terrible. I can't disagree with any of your points. I mean, especially the personal view. I mean, I would never look to go below a 2 litre again.
Yeah, I could maybe do a 1.8 as long as it's got a turbo.
For me, like, I never even liked 2 litres, to be fair, because I always thought they were a bit, it's 2 litre. Like, why can't I have a 2.2 or a 2.3? Now, and this is just fucking total bollocks for me, because I don't know why I prefer it, but a 2.3 is like, oh, what an engine size. That's nice. I think because I'm into bikes, it's because of the mid-sized bikes, like your 750s and your 635s and your 675s. They've got that little bit more mid-range torque, but they still handle like the smaller engine. They still have the really light throw playfulness that the 600s have. But that's a total departure from what we're talking about here, anyway.
Yeah, fair.
Um,
Okay, so it's like kind of the 2.3 kind of pushing the size, the kind of practical size of a four-pot.
Yeah, I mean, like my last quotes fast car, the Accord 2.4, it wasn't all that in a bag of chips, but the only reason I bought it was because of the engine. Like if it was a 2 litre, I just would never have even looked at it, and I saw it at the right time. I was like, I'm going to go and buy that, and that was it.
Simple as. I mean, the Accord wasn't slow.
It also wasn't fast.
Yeah. I've
But
definitely done that. Buy a car based pretty much exclusively on the engine.
yeah,
Because, like, yeah, I remember definitely when looking for a first car, I knew, like Ford Fiestas were really, really cheap. It was like a Mark 3 or 4 or something. I can't remember. But like, there was the 1.3. What was it like? Duratec. Duratec.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah, with so it was the 8-valve essentially.
Yep.
And then they had the 125 ZTEC, which was the 16-valve. No,
Yeah, that was the one. Yeah.
not 16.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
16? Yeah, sorry, I've become really confused. Yeah, the 16-valve, and the 16-valve was, kind of like a bit more powerful. It was like the ZTEC was a slightly better engine. So I knew that was the one I wanted. So I found a car that had that in it, and was like, broadly speaking, car around. It was like fine. I didn't really care what color it was. I didn't really care what trim level it was. I just wanted it to have the right engine.
Yeah.
And I've done that before since, actually. Just like I tend to look for a motor and like consider the car around it a little bit later on.
See, I've done that in the past, and strangely, well, I mean that's how I bought the Accord, but strangely, with my next, like what I want from my next car, I'm not going to be able to do that, which is quite weird because with me going 911 next, as I believe I'm going to, I really want a Mesger engine, but all the cars that contain Mesger engines are ridiculously expensive. So I might end up with an M96 or an M97 and then have to deal with IMS failure and bore scoring and RMS issues. And yeah, it's got to be fun.
Brilliant.
But the good thing is, like, this is the thing though. Like, it comes back to what you were saying about the reliability before. Like, I'm going to buy one of these knowing that that's a possibility. And because I know it's a possibility, I've already looked into what I can do to make it better. And what I can do to make it better is take that 3.6 or that 3.8 and make a 4 litre.
Make your own 4 litre.
Yeah, like strip it down, take the block away, get bored out, put new cylinder liners in it. There we go. No more cylinder scoring. And while it's in pieces, I might as well do the IMS bearing as well. So it's like bish bash bosh, job done. And like 600 quid in a couple of weekends time gets it sorted. And then I've got a Porsche 911, which is a 4 litre, which makes more power. And yeah, like why the fuck wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you just do that? And I mean, I know I'm spoiled because I have the capabilities to do it myself, but that's like fucking just do it. Go on YouTube and type in how to rebuild a fucking engine and do it. Nobody has any excuses. Well, I mean,
what a strangely aggressive call to arms there. Quite threatening call to arms.
well, do you know, I hear it a lot, man. And it's like, oh, people are like, oh, I'd love to do that, but I don't have the knowledge. And this isn't anything against people that say they don't have the knowledge, but everyone has access to the ability to learn. We live in a time where knowledge is so accessible that we can literally learn to do whatever we want. But yeah, anyway, that's a little rant done.
Fair. Everyone out there has got a project car sitting that's been neglected for a while.
YouTube's the answer.
I've totally lost where we were. Were we talking about engine sizes?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't disagree with anything you've said on the downsizing. And I think we're going to be pretty aligned on where like big CC's place is in the new world order, given that everyone's wanting 3 cylinders and less displacement than what their bottle of milk has. So
Yeah, I mean, what I will say is it's impressive what they can get out of a 3-cylinder, like now, compared to like what 3-cylinder cars were, kind of when I was just starting to like, look for cars,
Oh
when I
yeah.
was younger. Like the change is pretty dramatic.
Like, have you seen some of the Yaris GRs that are floating about? Like, some of them are making 700 brake from a 1.6 3-cylinder. It's
That's
like, what? That is
insane.
fucking mental. Which, it actually just goes to show how fucking shite Volkswagen Audi Group are when they needed 4 turbos, 16 cylinders, and 8 litres of displacement in the Veyron to make 1,000 brake horsepower.
I'm gonna find my links clicker, and when we start recording, I'm just gonna click every time you have a go at Volkswagen Automotive Group, and we can do a little count at the end of the episode.
We could make it a competition. We could like work out, get the number right on each episode, and we'll have a bingo card system. And anyone that fills their bingo card in is they email it in, and whoever does it first, the first email gets a prize. I'm legitimately up for doing that, by the way.
I'm not sure I am. That seems like quite a lot of fucking work, to be honest, to send out a prize.
No, I'm not sending a prize out. The prize is you get well done, young Timmy, on filling out your bingo card. That's what it'll be.
Yeah, okay, prize might have been a bit generous.
You get a shout out. There we go. Aye, sorry, right, fuck. We're moving on. Displacement.
Yes, displacement. So I do quite like bigger displacement cars. It isn't like it's not very progressive of me, but like I love a high displacement.
Yeah. And do you know that even big displacements like coming down in size? So like big displacement now really is like 3 and 4 litre engines. And I've always found them to be like the absolute perfect sweet spot for size.
Yeah, yeah, I would totally agree. I've never really had the opportunity to drive like a big displacement lazy engine, and I'd love to try one.
I have, but it's never been in that great a car, so it always feels like a total fucking wasted experience. Like lots of Land Cruisers and stuff, like big 5.7s and that, but it's like, meh. It would probably be pretty fast if it was in something the size of an average saloon, but because it's dragging half a fucking moon behind it, it's you know. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, as with everything, they're being downsized and they're being turboed, which is only a good thing for me anyway. I know that there's purists out there who aren't very happy about it, but like a 3 litre or a 4 litre with a turbo on it, if you've got a 1.6 3 litres kicking about out there making 700 brake, what are we going to be able to do with the 3 litres and the 4 litres? You know?
Absolutely, and you can make those bigger horsepower numbers much more comfortably, much more like comfortably from like a kind of material and manufacturing and engineering perspective.
Yeah,
Less
well,
stress.
exactly. Because this is like we discussed before, like specific output is a big factor here. So like making 1,000 brake horsepower is not difficult on a 5 litre engine because it's only 200 brake per litre, which is not a lot.
No, it's not. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited about the general trend, which is the smaller, high stressed engines. I'm not sure how it's going to play out with the industry's like absolute need and want to have longer and longer service intervals. I think that's a recipe for disaster, but it's going to be fun to see them all go bang. Like the EcoBoom engines on the Fords.
Yeah, there's another 1.3, no, one like what small engine that's got a wet belt as well, isn't it? In a Vauxhall.
Oh, it could be. And the only thing scarier than a wet belt in a Ford is the wet belt in a Vauxhall, because I think Vauxhall's the only company that has worse engineering standards than Ford.
Honestly, man, I was thinking exactly the same thing. I was like, they really are duking it out at the bottom.
Did I ever tell you that the Vauxhall tried to make their own diesel engine once? It was well, they've made their own diesel engines in the past, but for the Vivaro van, and they were like, there was something that they share an engine. I can't remember how it works, but then they turned around one day and were like, "This is no fucking good. We're going to make our own proprietary engine," and it takes like this weird grade of oil, and it has the filter is proprietary and isn't shared with anything else. And like, there was a guy came in to get it serviced once, and he's like, "How's it? Is it expensive?" We're like, "Well, that would be because your oil filter cost us £64." He's like, "What?" I was like, "Aye, we can only get them from fucking from Vauxhall. Like they don't do them anywhere else."
Yeah.
He goes, "And how? But that's only £64." Does it? Yeah, your oil was like £54 a litre from Vauxhall as well, because it's this engine that they only made it for like a year and a half. And like, they're just absolute fucking monstrosities, man. Like, they've got loads of problems, everything's super expensive, and they're just a bit crap.
Wow, yeah.
So, yeah, bespoke engineering solutions aren't always the answer when you're dependent upon economies of scale. But yeah, so no, it's yeah, we've done displacement. Now, for me anyway, and I think for you as well, we kind of get into the good stuff. And one of the questions is, it's all about power bands, you know?
Yeah, I agree.
Is it sweet induction roar, choo choo unicorn noises, or oh fuck the world's ending type of whining noises that you want? That's it. And the answer dictates what power band you get.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Um,
I don't know if I can decide between if I have a preference over any turbo or supercharged. Like, I think I love all of them. Can I not just have them all?
well, you can't have all of them, but you can have two of them.
No, I don't need them all in the same engine. I just want
Oh, right.
an engine of each, please.
Oh, do you know on Reddit, you've got shit tattoos, the subreddit.
Ship tattoos.
Shit tattoos.
Oh,
as
right.
in
Yeah. Okay.
tattoos.
No, I didn't know about this, but yeah, I
Right.
can believe it.
So just what you said there brought me in mind of a guy who had a Honda engine tattooed on him, right? And it's got like the Jackson Racing supercharger inlet manifold on the exhaust side, right?
Right.
And then on the inlet side, he's got like independent throttle bodies sticking up, which are like the NA God mode induction, right? And then off to the side, he's got this exhaust pipe that just comes out of nowhere with a fucking turbo on it, and it's an engine with all three. It's NA, turbo, and supercharged all at the same time. Everyone's just ripping into this poor guy about his shite.
Oh
back,
man.
back
How detailed
tattoo.
was the diagram essentially?
No, it was like an image, mate. It was like someone had taken the photo of the top of a Honda engine and then found all these photos online of engine parts and just fucking mashed them all together and went in and went, "I want that on my back."
God, that sounds rough.
Oh, it's rough. It's horrible. But anyway, fucking Honda guys, what do you want to do about it?
Fair.
But yeah, like, it's all about power band here. So like NA, typically like razor sharp response, purist stream, Porsche GT3. Then you got the turbo.
NA is all about, and any power band typically gives you most of the power kind of towards the top end.
Yeah, well, a good one does. Because I've driven NA cars where the power band gives you power nowhere at all. But yeah, so like NA's nice. Like, I know we're not a massive fan of them, but like MX-5s tend to have quite a peppy sort of NA attitude to them. They tend to be quite responsive. BMWs of old, like E46 M3, oofed. Yeah, like that's sort of masterclass M3, masterclass NA engines, really.
Honestly, like even that 125 ZTEC I had was really happy enough to rev. Like it felt really responsive and quite peppy, and it would like happily go up to 7,000. Although that I did break that, so maybe it didn't happily go up to 7,000.
It did, but not willingly.
Not regularly enough. and then it became broken. Oh, that poor car! I just destroy stuff.
You are very much an end user.
Yeah, I'm definitely hard on cars.
Nothing wrong with that, though. I've broken quite a few in my day.
I really, really wish I had somewhere I could put like a sacrificial car. car almost. The
Like
one
a
that I
car
drove when I was doing
graveyard.
something stupid, or some like I was transporting something impractical, or I was going down like a really really crap road. I didn't have to worry about it.
Fair enough. It'd be like, the plane graveyards in Nevada.
Yeah,
All the mothballed military jets are there. You're driving down the motorway, you just see the same thing off the M74. You're like, what the fuck is that? Oh, that's Thomas's car graveyard.
just where he leaves them when he's fucking broken them. Honestly, if I had the space, I'd never let a car go. I'd just like put it in a corner, leave it for now, deal with it another time, and then move on.
Let it return to the earth.
Yeah, I totally understand those people that have like a massive farm filled with just like cars that are, have trees growing through them. Like, and people are like, "How did you let this happen?" It's like, nah, I totally get how that happened.
Yeah. It's cool, like, although those people do my fucking head in, because I quite often try to buy their cars and they're always like, oh no, I'm going to fix it. I'm going like, what? You didn't fix it in the past decades. You're not going to fix it in the next one, are you?
It's just mental health problems, man. Yeah. It's just like people need to not, like, people can't let go sometimes.
And they need to learn to let go.
Yeah, they do. Absolutely.
So
back to turbos.
Yeah, I've got some opinions on these. So I like a nice NA engine, right? And I'm quite fond of a supercharger, although it's quite rare that I would end up driving one because they tend to be quite rare in the OEM world.
They are really rare, yeah. I've never had the opportunity to drive a supercharged car.
Do you know the best one I drove was a Corolla T Sport?
This is a supercharged Corolla?
Yeah, it was a 2-liter VVT Li engine with a supercharger on it. It was supposed to compete with the Type R, and in my mind, it's superior in every fucking way to the Type R. But
what supercharger was it?
It was a Roots. No, was it? No, it was an Eaton, I'm sure. Positive displacement supercharger.
Oh, cool.
And it sounded incredible.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I did not know about that.
But the issue I've got with them is that they cost you power. They make power, but they cost power in order to make it, right? So like when you get to like your big superchargers, like some of the big Yank tank stuff, like some of them are taking upwards of 100, 200 brake horsepower to turn the supercharger, which is ridiculous. But I do get the argument for them, especially like the centrifugal ones, which are just like a magnifying glass that goes on your power band and it just makes it more of everything everywhere. So like they retain the sort of power delivery of an NA engine almost, but they build boost linear in relation to RPM.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I do see where you're coming from, where they're like they leach power from the engine, but I don't know if that like that ultimate insane efficiency of like getting the most out of it is something that I necessarily care about more than like kind of making it cool and making it sound good.
Yeah, it's fair though. Like they definitely have their place, but for me, I want a whacking great dirty turbo hanging off the side of the fucking engine. That's what I want.
It's a good thing that you like turbos because they are absolutely everywhere. Like turbos they came in and they just conquered.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, like, you've got all this exhaust gas that's going just into the air, and more importantly, you've got heat because heat spools a turbo as well. Like hot exhaust gas is good, but cold exhaust gas is good as well. So, like, if you have a rear-mounted setup, everyone's like, "Oh, rear-mounted turbos don't actually spool that well because they're miles away from the fucking exhaust manifold." And it's like, technically, you're right, but the gas is a lot colder, so there's more mass in the gas. Like if the gas is cooled off, you've physically got more mass going through it to drive the turbine.
Oh, like you're saying, as the gas cools, it's kind of like the area density is increasing.
Yeah, because like people who have actually driven rear-mounted turbo setups, I haven't, but people who have actually driven them report that there's not all that much more lag. Like, so it's like, again, it's on the internet and you're going to have lots of armchair experts arguing about it. And it's like, fucking what? Go and do it and then tell me about it. But turbos are class.
Totally fair.
I love me some choo-choo unicorn noises. I'm all about it.
Yeah, I mean, I do like turbos as well. They're great. They're absolutely fantastic. Like, it's the kind of the minimum you want on any kind of car.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, like even with like people say turbo lag, but it's not really an issue now because you've got variable geometry turbos, which actually alter the vane configuration to spool up quicker.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, totally.
You've got twin scroll turbos, which typically take advantage of exhaust gas pulses. So you would split the AR of your turbine in half essentially, and then you would run it. So you would have pulses from exhaust hitting it. It takes advantage of pulse tuning in the same way that NA does for scavenging, basically, but to use it to spool a turbo, and it works pretty well. And then you had like some trickery and shit that was like you used to get vacuum plates that would go between your manifold and your turbo. So you would use a twin scroll turbo on a normal manifold, but you would be able to shut half the turbo off, which would drop the AR size by half. So you would spool up quicker, and then you'd open it up, and you'd be like, "Oh my god! Suddenly there's more AR, and you can take more exhaust gas." And
Mm-hmm.
you would
I get
still have
you.
a really high power output, but a really quick spool. Um, and then modern cars are taking advantage of a lot of that, and especially variable vane and twin scroll turbos. Like, and a properly set up twin scroll turbo should have next to no lag and give you power all the way through to your red line and just be an absolute fucking weapon.
It's having two turbos, like a smaller and a bigger one. That's not so common.
No, that would be like sequential turboing,
Yeah,
which
sequential turbos. That's it.
and typically you can achieve the same with a twin scroll turbo now.
Mm.
Like it's just not needed. Yeah,
Fair. It's just another point of failure, really, isn't it?
it is. Again, because we're keeping this quite light, I think that's enough there really. Because next, fueling. So on an NA engine, right? I would have to, if I was building one, I'd have to have a long, hard think about putting carbs or fuel injection on it. And I know that it's an ancient technology and it's shit and there's more upkeep and everything, but the sound is just incredible. um,
Honestly, I think that is genuinely a valid reason for making a choice with a car. Like, sound's a big part of it.
yeah, like that ambience is just like, whoa, yes, please. Yeah, I mean, again, it's a dead technology. There's not really all that many. I don't think there's any cars being made currently that have carbs. I'll go on a limb and say it. I don't actually think there is.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. But they did last for a bit longer than you'd kind of think. Like, there was still low-end cars that were, running carbs.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with a good carb either. Like, they work and they do the job they're meant to do fucking well, you know. So yeah, I mean, I don't really want to get into how carbs work, to be fair.
No, I don't think it
um,
matters.
no, now you have electronic fuel injection and all the cool tricks that that kind of brings. But
Squirty hoses.
there was a sorry.
Squirty hoses.
Squirty hoses, but there was a really cool and misunderstood sort of problem child in between the two, which was like mechanical fuel injection. XR3Is, for example, had this.
How did what mechanical action inject the fuel? Because like you want quite a nice misty kind of spray.
Yeah, so they still had an air quotes injector per se. It's just it was all mechanical. There was no electronics firing it at all. So like what you see, like it was more common in diesels. Like diesels still, not now. They're all common rail injection. You will still get some plant and heavy equipment that has mechanical injection, but like a mechanical injection on a diesel essentially worked by the pump would send you would get the pump sending high pressure fuel to that mechanical injector and it would overcome a valve in the injector, fire through, and then it would hit the injection nozzle and spray out and give you your fan of fuel spray. Atomization.
Right.
Again, like, I don't think there's anybody on the planet that's going to be taking EFI off and putting mechanical on,
Aye.
because it doesn't have the noise of carbs or anything like that. It basically works like EFI, but needs more upkeep, essentially. But I mean, the era of electronic fuel injection is like, now we can have like flex fueling, where you can put ethanol in. You can have a sensor that detects the ethanol content and automatically varies your timing and boost and all that stuff, which is cool. You can have stuff like flat foot shifting, two-step limiters, launch control. A lot of this was all sort of hand in hand with electronic fuel injection and ECU sophistication, which they're one and the same for me if we're discussing it like this, really. They do a lot of cool stuff. They allow a lot of cool stuff to happen, and especially now, where a lot of stuff can be remapped on its original ECU. Like, you can reflash it, so you don't have to go out and spend 1,200 quid on a fucking link or something like that in order to remap it, which is really nice.
Absolutely, yeah.
But for a driver's car, I'm not convinced all the cool tricks that you can do with EFI is really needed. Really, all you want is to deliver fuel in the most efficient manner possible, and that's it, as far as I'm concerned, for a driver's car.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I can understand it giving you that control over how much fuel you're giving the motor at different parts of its, power band.
Yeah.
But I kind of broadly agree. It's like extras.
Yes, and extras in the most part tend to take away from the feel of a car. Is there anything you want to ask about? Because that's me kind of at the end of where I want to go with the engine talking about. Because I don't want to get too deep into it. Like I said, this isn't meant to be like an OU lecture.
Yeah. I don't really want to ask too many super specific questions, just in case to turn it back into one. But no, that was really, really interesting. I thought that was a great overview of motors and stuff in general. I think there's maybe some stuff that I don't think we covered that I've always kind of been faintly interested in knowing, which is is porting where they change the shape and size of the inlet and exhaust kind of holes in the block?
Yeah, so if you're porting, basically what you're doing is you're making that you're enlarging the port size to flow more air fuel ratio in, and generally you want to be making everything as smooth as possible. This is general, because what actually helps on the inlet side, for example, is to keep the surface rough. There was a bit of a trend years ago of making it like the surface of a golf ball, putting little indents in it.
Right, yeah.
And the idea was that they would trap air and have it traveling slower, and then you would get a boundary level of air on the outside walls, and then the air in the center would be flying through quicker, which would create turbulence, which would mix the air fuel mixture better. Sorry.
Right, okay. So basically deliberately generating kind of a turbulent airflow.
Yeah, but generally with porting, you're looking to enlarge as reasonably big as you can go, but you're also you're limited by how much you can take out before you start breaking into water jackets and before you start basically having structural issues in the head.
That makes sense, yeah.
Taking material off in the combustion chamber as well, so you want the combustion chamber to be as smooth as possible, because if you have a high point, that can create a hot spot, because you've got less material in the actual build-up of the high point, and because you've got less material, it's got less of a heat sink ability, so it can run hotter at the tip, which can cause pre-detonation, which is where you have an ignition event before the piston is over top dead center. So the piston's still coming up and you've got the explosion box happening, and it's normally manifests itself as a pinking noise, like tink, 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 tink. Which is why whenever you're getting a remap, you see them having big earmuffs on. Usually they are hooked up to microphones on the engine, and they're listening for knock or pinking.
That's really interesting.
It's mad. So when you get into it, man, it's so interesting. Like there's so much cool shit, which is it's really hard to skim over.
Absolutely, yeah, I understand.
When you skim over it, you kind of miss lots of the meat. But in order to get like a nice overview of what we want to look for, we don't really need to go to that level, which is handy.
Yeah, I mean, one of my other questions would be talking about cams and what something like more aggressive cams means. Does that mean that that's like more lift to let in more? Don't know for longer. Is that no? Because there's difference because you can increase the time that the valves are open from the cam, and you can also increase the amount they're open.
So generally, you're going to look at increasing duration, which is the amount of time the valve's open for, and you're going to look at increasing lift, which is the amount of it's how open the valve is. So it's the valve sits further open with more lift.
Yeah, this is absolutely why I'm glad you're here, because that was really, really well explained. That's exactly what I meant, yeah.
There's not like a hard and fast rule for it though, because like in any engine, a turbo engine, a supercharged engine are all going to have totally different cam specs. And there's a lot that comes into it, especially with NA. So like you want to take advantage of scavenging, which is when you have the air's always rushing in because it's always being drawn in. But when it hits the back of a shut valve, you get a pressure wave that travels in the opposite direction. And then that pressure wave interacts with pressure waves that are coming back the way. And it can also interact with pressure with like the construction and the material, the construction, the material, the layout and everything of your inlet setup. And you get all these different pressure waves. And what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to have the pressure wave going towards the valve as it's starting to open, because then you get a rush of higher velocity air, essentially.
Yeah, okay, I totally understand that. Like rebounding in the right way so you're forcing air into the valves when they're into the combustion chamber when the valves are open.
Yes, and then you want the opposite when it's exhausting. So you want to try and get a pulse coming back towards the exhaust to hit the exhaust valve just before it opens, so that it is then traveling out of the exhaust port as the exhaust valve is opening, so it pulls the material out of the cylinder.
That's really cool. That is really, really cool. Very interesting.
It is. It's cool, man. Like engines are fucking class.
Yeah, I really like them. I think they're so cool. I love the explosion box.
With that in mind, what we've talked about, do you think there's any generalizations that we can apply to like what would be a typically well-regarded driver's engine? Like the S54 and the E46 M3, for example.
Is that the 4-litre V8?
That is the 3.2 straight six. The 4-litre.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
The God mode one that everybody wants.
I mean, that's like, does that not rev to like 9,000?
It does. It revs high. If it's not 9, it's like 8.5 or 7.9.
I know, but like unusually high. That's a cool engine. I really like that. I bet that feels lively. Sounds great.
Yeah, and I mean, picking that as an example, we know it's NA, 6-cylinder, straight six, so really good balance. 3.2, which is like right in the sweet spot as far as I'm concerned for displacement, and an over square design. And then for like your induction side, it's NA running through independent throttle bodies, which is like, it's just fucking, it's like that's like a recipe for greatness that BMW just keeps using over and over again.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why they've kind of stuck around with it for so long, even though other manufacturers, have kind of just gradually tended towards it was before, it was the 4-cylinder kind of 1.8, 2-litre-ish kind of range, but now it's more like 3-cylinder 1 litres or like 1.5 4-litre 4-cylinders.
Yeah, it's actually interesting as well because BMW, there was an interview with a BMW engine designer I read years ago, and one of the takeaways from it was that BMW maintain that the ideal size for a cylinder is between 250 and 600 cc's or 550 cc, which is why you typically tend to see all their V6, all their straight sixes are about 3 litres or 2.5. They all their engines are always these similar denominations of displacement, and it's because that's part of their design philosophy, is that there's an ideal cylinder size, which is quite interesting.
It is, absolutely. Do you remember the Mazda MX-3 that had the tiny, I think it was like a 1.3 V6?
I think it was
Sorry,
a
1.3 litre, oh, maybe a 1.8 litre V6.
Yes, I do.
Truly tiny, tiny cylinders.
But fantastic.
Quite cool, yeah. Quite cool little thing.
So, do you think the character of an engine, like what we've spoken about, do you think any of it's integral to the character of an engine then?
That's a good question. I suppose the design of the engine would influence its character. You know, if it's like, like quite a highly strung inline 3 engine, it's not going to feel like kind of like lazy and kind of like, it's not going to feel like that. It's going to feel like loud and kind of like frantic and
a bit raucous.
Hopefully powerful.
Yeah, like certainly, like I think some of the more manic engines that I've driven, they all tend to be like very powerful for the displacement, and they've got an appetite for revs and stuff like that. And like when the turbo comes on song, it's just like fucking go go go. There's no chill. But yeah, I think they can define the character of an engine, but I think it's much like what we came out, like the conclusion we came to with the chassis. I think it's hard to design an engine to have character, though.
Yeah, like I suppose you can make conscious decisions to give it like aspects of character, but like it's more how the user interacts with it that defines its character.
Yeah, definitely. Because like based on everything we've kind of said, like the engines with the best character should be motorsport engines. They tend to just be very very utilitarian. Like when you hear them, it's not like they're particularly anything special about them. It's just an engine, a very very powerful and highly spec engine. But like really, like the most, like you would think like motorsport engines are full of character, but like I don't really think they are. I think they're a bit utilitarian. Like the sound of like Formula One engines, and that's obviously unbelievable. But when you get to like touring cars, they never really sound particularly.
Yeah, they're
like, yeah.
I can see what you mean. Yeah, I totally see what you mean on that.
So I think you're into like a road car engine for really characterful operation.
Yeah, I mean, you got more chance of interacting with it, experiencing it. Like some engines, some engines do want to kind of rev, and that gives them like a more playful or like scary vibe.
Yeah, that's actually a thing. Like scary engines do exist. Like when you jump in a car and it's egging you on faster and faster all the time, an engine has a lot to play with there. Like that's like a good engine doing that can lead to some carnage. Like
absolutely. Although I would say it's preferable to me than an engine where you give it everything and it just doesn't seem to be that interested in the business of moving. It's just ones that where you put your foot down and it's almost like nothing's happening. Like it doesn't get any louder and it doesn't get any faster. Ones where you put your foot down and it gets louder but not necessarily faster.
Yeah.
Or cars that accelerate but accelerate so steadily and so slowly that there's no actual feel of acceleration.
Yeah. Aye, like the Renault Capture, for example.
Yeah, I'm sure it could get up to a good, a decent, motorway speed, but like it just takes a really long time to get there and doesn't feel very fast.
Yeah, that's it. Like you need to have that push. It needs to want to go.
Mm-hmm. And see, that's the thing with diesels, right? Diesels can really give you that initial shove, but the problem is they just like kind of run out of grunt.
Yeah, it's like they start off strong,
Yeah.
and in a lot of ways, diesels are a bit like professional boxers.
Okay, right. I'm gonna try this. Yeah.
So like you've got like David Hay going in to fight Klitschko, for example. This was years ago. I would have been like 19 in this fight that I'm on about. And
Honestly, man, you could just be naming anything. Like, I have no idea about boxing at all.
fair enough. Well, like what happened, right? David Hay was doing the big fucking I am bullshit, talking a load of piss, right?
Right,
And then
get
he
ya.
came out and he's like, "This fight's going to be as one-sided as a gang rape and all this shit."
Oh my
Right?
god,
That's a genuine quote, by the way. David Hay actually said that,
that's so bad.
and then he fucking went into the fight and was fannying about like a big pansy, yeah. And then they came out the fight, and I remember watching like the post-fight interviews and that, and there was the guy was like, "You were giving it some pretty big talk before the fight. What happened?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I stubbed my toe the night before." And it's like, "Fuck off, you fanny!" Then, like, what are you on about?
Oh, that's terrible.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's what I mean. Like diesels, they talk a good game, and then they start off really well, and then it just goes to shit really quickly.
Yeah, fair, absolutely fair. Okay, I am way more on board with that than I thought it was going to be.
Did you think that was going to be a tortured analogy there?
Yeah, man, I had no idea where that was going, but I agree. I totally agree.
Fair enough. Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it is what it is. Like, so David, there we go, people. More valid consumer advice. Don't buy a diesel engine. You might as well go out and get yourself a David Hay. Or any other professional boxers exist, Yeah,
So
like
many professional boxers are just being purchased to do like carrying folk about and like just general labouring.
do you know the beautiful thing about the multiverse is multiverse theory, there's probably an earth somewhere where the only reason professional boxers exist is to carry people about.
But what would that mean for what we're doing right now? Would we be talking about the different types of professional boxer that you can be carried about in?
Well, I mean, it must mean that, yeah, because you would have enthusiasts about being, what the fuck are we talking about?
You absolutely would. You would have enthusiasts about being carried about by a professional boxer.
Oh fuck, Tom, we need to move on.
We do. We absolutely do.
Yeah, right, fuck it then. So before I get to like the kind of penultimate question of the episode, right? There's one subject we have to broach. I'm not going into like drivetrain and stuff because that was covered in the last episode about chassis and everything.
Absolutely fair.
So
Yeah.
gearboxes. Now there's not really a discussion here, I don't think. This is more of a statement, and I'm pretty sure we're both going to be aligned on it. So it needs to be manual. It needs to be a good manual. It needs to be notchy, slick, with a short flow, a short throw, and preferably 6 cogs. But I mean, that's kind of it. I don't really have a question for you here.
Yeah, I mean, I do broadly agree with that. Like, I would love to try a proper nice flappy paddle that doesn't just decide it wants to do gears for me. I just really like a manual gearbox. I don't sit in enough traffic for it to really be a problem, for it to be like not difficult, sorry. To be like kind of tiring and like kind of not that much fun to just constantly be changing gear or sitting on the clutch or like, just in traffic in a manual. I'm just never in traffic. So yeah, manual 6-speed, please.
Yeah, that's it. So with that big one covered, what would your ideal engine be, given what we've talked about?
I've always wanted to own a V8. I've always wanted to own a V8, and I would always kind of like to own a V12 as well. They're kind of like my poster engines, if you know what I mean. And like, by own them, I don't really want to take like a kind of shortcut to doing it. Like, I bought a truck with a diesel V8 or something like that. I actually want like a V8.
Yeah, you don't want a cop out.
No, I don't want to say I technically owned one. I want to say no, I owned one. Like, that would be cool. So that's something aspirational to me. And likewise, a V12 would be sick. Like, absolutely sick. I mean, again, I would also not say no to a V10, but like, it just there's less stuff with a V10 out there. That's
Yeah.
definitely, and I'm not really that keen on buying a very, 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 very cheap, mysteriously cheap luxury Audi with a V10 in it.
No, that has some questionable seller motives, we'll say.
Yeah, totally. You've got a kid on the way and it's not big enough for you. All right, yeah, totally, yeah.
Aye, this massive V10 twin turbo estate isn't big enough for you and your child. Yeah, totally.
That is an absolute fucking classic on the old advert.
It is what it is, I suppose. Yeah, no, you make a good point though, because like for me, it's 6 cylinders because that's the magic fucking number, you know. For
Definitely
me,
prefer 6 to 4, yeah.
and it needs to be inline or flat. And apart from that, I'm not that picky, to be fair.
It's because there's so much good stuff out there. There's so much interesting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like when it comes down to like what the question about this episode is what engine do we need and it makes a good driver's car? And there's a lot of different characters and a lot of different qualities an engine can have, but I think it kind of has to be you have to pick it in line with what you want it to do and what the chassis is doing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We really should have thought of a theoretical car for this to put all of the ideal parts on.
So your good driver's car, for example, right? We're going to be either mid-engined or rear-engined, and it's going to be used majority of the and rear-wheel drive. Majority of your use is going to be B roads, twisty A roads, and track work, and that's it. So that's what you're looking for here. You're looking for an engine for your ideal driver's car. What would it have?
Oh, I could totally see in it a straight six.
Yeah,
Yeah, I could see a straight six in that for sure.
it's fair.
What that car makes me think about is it makes me think lightweight,
Yeah.
which makes me think kind of light, peppy engine is what you want with that.
So if we were to settle on like if it was front engine rear wheel drive, we're looking sort of 2 to 3 liter NA straight six, possibly turbo, but running the risk of giving you too much power to be properly playful, I would feel.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to make it quite nervous or snappy or anything.
Yeah. You want it to be the perfect tactile driving experience. So too much power is out. But then when it comes to like mid-engined, really I think you're looking like V8,
Totally, yeah.
V12. I don't really want to go V10 because for me it would be the 8 or the 12 cylinder, like you've said. And really I don't think it matters at that point because when you get to like mid-engine and rear-engined, you've got so much natural traction with weight transfer that you could have plenty of power.
I totally agree, but I've had a thought. Hear me out, right?
Hit me.
Mid-engined, rear-wheel drive, inline six,
Yeah, I would not argue with that.
transversely mounted, and
Volvo.
like on a kind of platform that's like think like the Honda Del Sol. Is that the one that was it had like a weird shape?
Yes, it was.
What I should really have said is think kind of like MR2 style platform, but like on a strict two-seater
Yeah,
with an inline six instead of an inline four. That I think if you had a small platform like that, I would go that kind of size engine. But anything bigger, yeah, you'd probably be like a V8 or V12.
fair enough. Well, as a kind of rounding up statement, tell me if you would agree. So, there's a lot of different characters and a lot of different qualities that an engine can take, but for it to truly achieve greatness in a driver's car, really, it's almost about the quality of the interaction between the engine and the chassis, as well as the driver and everything else, and how everything interplays that makes the engine good. Like you can put a good engine in a shit car and it ruins the engine.
Absolutely, yeah. 100%. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like you can have a really, really willing, fun, playful engine in an absolute fucking boat that punishes you for actually, traveling at speed because it can't handle itself in the corners.
But by virtue, I don't think the opposite is true. I think if you put a weak or a mediocre engine in a fantastic chassis, what it does is create a momentum car. So
I
it can
totally
still be
agree with that. Have you ever been in a momentum car and just been like, God, I'm so annoyed right now. All I want is more power because there's so much more potential in this.
I have, yes,
That's
many
frustrating
times.
as well.
It is. It's frustrating, but the point I'm making is that I think that for an engine to be great, it depends on the chassis that it's put into being great as well.
Working in partnership.
Yeah, I think it has to form a partnership with the chassis in order for it all to work. Because if it doesn't do that, what you're in essence left with is a drag car. It's very good in a straight line and nothing else. Like, it doesn't stop very well, it doesn't steer or handle well. It just accelerates like a rocket and does a really high top speed, and that's it.
Aye, totally. Okay, great. It's really, really good on the motorway. Brilliant.
But it's a one-trick pony, and a good driver's car should be able to do everything passably well, but it should be fun, engaging, and tactile as the absolute three things. And I think the engine depends on the chassis as well as the chassis depending on the engine. I think the two are intermingled in a very, very nuanced fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. I think that's a good way to sum it up, actually. There are elements that can help you make a great engine, but ultimately you need to listen to the first episode in this to understand what a great chassis is and combine the two.
Yeah, I think that's us, man. I think that might be it.
I totally agree. I think that's a great place to end.
Definitely. Look at that. We've actually done an episode with a very succinct ending.
Yeah, no, we're getting better at it. Getting better.
Yeah, the production value is increasing, folks. You've got to hand it to us.
Absolutely. So, we've been Auto Arcadia. Thank you very, very much for listening. And if you've enjoyed this, please give us a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. 5 stars, please, folks. Let us know what you think in the comments.